I want to show you something that changed the way I experience every relationship in my life. It's not a technique, it's not a communication strategy, it's not something you do. It's something that you learn to notice. And once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. This is called the gap. I'm going to spend a few minutes showing you exactly why you have never found it, what it costs you when you miss it, and what becomes possible when you learn to see it. There's a specific kind of suffering that nobody talks about in relationships. It's not in the big fights, it's not in the breakups. It's the moments between something happening and your reaction to it. A text that goes unanswered, a tone of voice that changes slightly, a partner that seems a little distant, a silence that lasts a few hours too long. In that moment, most people don't pause. They don't think, they don't choose, they just collapse. They go from zero to spiral in seconds. And by the time they realize that this is happening, they already send an anxious follow-up message. They pick a fight they weren't trying to have. And they build a case against someone who was just busy. I know this because I've been there before. Every relationship I had followed the same pattern. Something small would happen, I will catastrophize it, and I will react to the catastrophe. And then I will spend days managing the damage that I caused with my reaction. And the relationship wasn't the problem. The collapse was the problem. Here's what I want you to understand about the collapse. It didn't feel like a choice. It felt like the only possible response. When your nervous system fires, it doesn't feel like the nervous system is firing at all. It feels like reality. It feels like, of course I'm anxious. Look at what's happening. But what is actually happening is this. Something happens, your brain detects the pattern, it matches the pattern against your history, it assigns a meaning, and then it creates a feeling. That feeling then tells you what to do. And the entire process takes less than a second. It happens super fast. By the time you're conscious that it's happening, you're already mid-reaction, already inside the story that your nervous system wrote for you. There is no pause, no assessment, no choice at all. Just the event, the story, and the reaction. That's the default human experience for most people, but that doesn't have to be yours. I grew up in a house where emotional withdrawal was a form of punishment. When something went wrong, people went quiet. Silence meant I had failed. Silence meant I was losing someone. Silence meant that something bad was coming that I couldn't see yet. So I learned very early on to treat silence as a threat. My nervous system categorized the silence as danger. And then I grew up and started having relationships. But the catalog didn't update. So every time that my partner went quiet and didn't text me back fast enough, it almost seemed like they had checked out. There was a moment of distance, and my nervous system pulled all of that reaction from the old life because I understood that silence was danger, and I reacted to them like they were the original threat, like they were the person from my past who used the silence to hurt me. They had no idea, and I didn't have any idea. I thought that I was reacting to what was in front of me. And the truth is that I wasn't. I was reacting to something that happened 20 years ago in my body that never got the memo that the situation had changed. This is what happens during an emotional hijack, and is the single most common reason most people destroy relationships they actually really care for. So when your brain detects a threat, it triggers the survival response before the rational thinking mind can eventually activate. Because survival always moves faster than reason. So when your partner doesn't reply to your message, your nervous system isn't asking, is this person busy? And the only question that it's asking is, does this match the pattern that I have learned to associate with pain? If the answer is yes, and for most people with anxious attachment, the answer is almost always yes, the alarm fires. And then you're gone. Not because the situation required it, but because the pattern matched. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, and he spent years in Nazi concentration camps, and during conditions that broke most people. And from that experience, he wrote the most important sentence I've ever read. And it goes like this: Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. That is the gap. Viktor Frankl wasn't talking about the metaphorical space. He was talking about a real, live, accessible moment, a pocket of consciousness that exists between what happens to you and what you do about it. The problem isn't that the gap doesn't exist. The problem is that most people have never been taught that it exists. They have never been shown how to find it. They have never been trained to live inside it. So they go through life reacting and calling it feeling. They go through life reacting and calling it authenticity. They call reacting and calling it being honest. And they wonder why the pattern keeps destroying their relationships. I want to be precise about this because it truly matters. The gap is not a pause before you respond. It's not a breathing exercise. It's not collecting yourself before saying the same thing you were going to say anyway. The gap is the state of presence. It's in the moment where you are aware to what's actually happening in your body, in your nervous system, in the story that is being generated before you become the story all over again. It's the difference between watching the wave approaching and being swept by it. Both people can see the wave and only one has a choice. There are 3 layers inside this gap. The first is the sensation. Before every emotional reaction, there's a physical signal. There's a tightening of the chest, a hollowness in the stomach, the heat that you feel on your throat, because your body communicates before the mind catches up. That signal is the first entry point into the gap. The second is the story. After the sensation comes the narrative. This is your brain assigning meaning to what just happened. So if they don't reply, it's because they're pulling away. They seem distant, means that they're losing interest. So the story to you is automatic. It's fast, it's highly convincing, but the story is not truth. The story is a hypothesis built on all data. So when you find the gap, you can see the story as a story, not as reality. The third is a choice. This is where most people think the gap begins, but this is just the last layer. The choice only becomes available when you see the sensation and recognize the story. Without those two, there's no pause before the reaction. There's only reaction, and that's it. But when you can feel the sensation and you can see the story, you can catch yourself before it becomes it. And then you arrive to the question that truly matters. What do I actually want to do here? Not what does the nervous system want? Not what does my fear want? Not what does my ego want to do? What do I want? That's the gap. I want to say something to the person that's watching this video thinking, this is just who I am. I am an emotional person. This is just how I'm wired. You are not too emotional. You are not unaware, and that's the difference. Emotional depth is not a flaw. Feeling deeply is not a problem. The problem is not having awareness to know what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and whether the feeling matches what is actually happening. When you develop awareness, you don't just stop feeling, you start choosing. Reacting without awareness is exhausting, and it damages the relationships that you want to protect because it creates the very distance that you are afraid of. So responding from the gap isn't something else entirely. It's calm without being cold, presence without being reactive, honest without being destructive. And here's the part that took me the longest to see. The reactions I was having were not random. Every time I spiral, every time I send an anxious follow-up message, every time that I catastrophize a moment of distance, I was operating from a very specific identity. I am the kind of person who is always on edge of being left. I am the kind of person who needs to manage other people's emotions to feel safe. That identity was unconscious. I didn't choose to feel that way. I didn't want to be that way. I inherited that from the experiences that shaped me, but it was running everything underneath. And the reactions weren't the disease, they were the symptom. So the gap doesn't just give you a moment of pause. Used consistently, it begins to reveal the identity underneath the reaction. And when you can see the identity, you can stand outside of it and look at it, and you can start asking different questions. Questions such as, is this who I actually want to be? This question is the beginning of transformation, not self-improvement, not behavioral change, but identity transformation. So I'm going to tell you something that most people in this space won't tell you. The gap is not easy to find. Not because it's complicated, because finding it requires you to slow down at the very exact moment your entire nervous system is telling you to speed up. Your nervous system has been perfecting that storm your entire life. It has had years of convincing you that the reaction is necessary, that the spiral is the right action, that the story is true. You are not going to override that by breathing exercises. You overcome it in the way that you overcome anything that lives in the body. You do it through awareness, through repetition, and the kind of work that changes the nervous system relationship that you have to threat. And here's what waits for you on the other side. A relationship with a partner whose silence doesn't destroy you, a moment of distance that doesn't turn into a catastrophe, a difficult conversation that doesn't become a war, a love that doesn't depend on perfect behavior to feel safe. That's not a fantasy. That is very possible, and that's what secure attachment actually feels like. And that starts by seeing the gap. If something here has landed and you recognize yourself somewhere here, I want you to know that that is awareness, and that is the beginning for you. You don't need to have this figured out completely. You just need to know that the gap exists. Because now you can start to notice the moment before you spiral, the second that you pause before the anxious text, the breath before the story takes over. And in that moment, you have a choice. That choice is what we build inside of Trueform. Not just the understanding of the gap, but training yourself to live in it until presence becomes your default, until security comes from the inside of you, not from the outside. So if you are ready for that, there's a link in my bio. So hopefully you learned something today. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.